Yeah. Oh, those are automated announcements. So, yeah, those 4:30, 3:30 announcements, I set them in advance. No, I don't. Once you have kids, no, you don't. Okay. Should we wait for a couple more minutes or should we start? What do you think, Kamal? Should we wait or should we start? Wait? Okay, we'll wait. We'll wait because you said so. Yeah. All right. All right. So a couple of announcements before we start. If you haven't already, create your CodePen account because today will be a very interactive class where I'll show you a bunch of CodePens and you could tinker around with the values there and check out how CSS transforms work. Also, for the in-class exercise, you can submit your own CodePens. So that's another good reason to have a CodePen. Or it doesn't have to be necessarily CodePen. It could be any kind of sandbox. It could be like JS Fiddle, whatever you want. But for the labs starting today, don't submit your CodePen. This is worth more percentage. I want to see if you can actually do it without potentially cheating. So submit just local zip files. Okay. Now you could use CodePen to develop, but submit local zip files. And let's just go over assignment number 2. I know I briefly introduced it last week. Let's just go over it in more detail today. So here it is. Oh, sorry, not assignment number 2, assignment number 1. I'm sorry, my bad. Assignment number 1 is this one here, project number 1, which is found under assignments, which is due Tuesday, February 19 at midnight. It's basically you're creating a toggle switch. And the criteria, so just look at the rubric and see what I'm grading you at. So, use CSS transforms, transitions. You can use, I know last semester I said do not use jQuery. For this class, you can use jQuery. I find that a lot of animators, you still use jQuery. So if you're in the if you're heading toward that world for the UX UI designer, you could still use jQuery. The switch is visually engaging and fun to use. There's a technical aspect, there's a creative aspect. So try to be creative with it. Oh, yeah, I still have to show you that example that I had last year, which I still have yet to find. Put that on my to-do list. Okay. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I gave a link here for inspiration as well. Okay, so today's class, we are going to begin with the fundamental building block called CSS transform. And let's see. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention before I forget. In my announcements, I don't know if you saw in my announcements, my pre-class to do, I actually said play this animated game, which helps you better understand CSS selectors. So it's kind of neat, and it kind of applies to what we're doing today as well. It looks like this. So at the very beginning, what level am I on? Oh, I'm level 26 right now. I need to go level 1. There we go. So you basically are given some markup here, and you have to select whatever is animating. And it gives you a hint on how to do that using CSS selectors. So for example, you can select elements by their type, like A, or like here's some examples, right? You already know. So here, if I look at the markup, I can select both these plates by saying plate. Right? So plate, enter, done. Then that level, next level, level 2. And it gets harder and harder. So it applies for this class because when you apply your transforms, you need to know how to select them. What else did I say in my announcements? Anything else? Yeah, check out this. If you have the time, read this article, read the State of Animation Overview. This article is basically covering what we're covering in this course. So, CSS transforms. When I first learned this last year, I got confused. There's things like transforms, transitions, translate, and it could be very confusing. So hopefully, the way I present it will be clear based on my still newbie experience on animation. Just a review here. This slide is from week 1. So Rachel Nabor is saying you should use animations for these 4 reasons: stateful transitions, which guides users between tasks flows, or you can use animations for supplemental animation, which accentuates secondary info, or you can use animations for causal effects, or you can use animations for decorative animations, which isn't really worth doing unless you can justify it. Now, this other guru, Val Head, she has 6 reasons, and some of them overlap with Rachel's. And this is coming from her animation book called Designing Interface Animation. Each of these headings is actually a separate chapter in her book, which I actually have. If you do want to buy this, I did say this is an optional resource in the syllabus, but it looks like this. That's her book. And so she says the reason why you should use animations are to orient and give context, to direct focus and attention, show cause and effect, which kind of overlaps with Rachel's. Use animation for feedback, for demonstration, or to express your brand. So we're gonna come across these points as we move along through the course. Each time we show an animation, we'll see if we can identify why we're using our animation, or and maybe use it in our assignments as well. This is Val Head's slide for her presentations, which I've put a link to that here. And this is a nice overview of the state of animation currently. So as you can see there, we can animate things using CSS transforms, and that's where we will begin today. Next week, we're going to move on to transitions, which works with transforms, although we will be touching with transitions today as well. After that, we're going to use animation keyframes, and that pretty much covers the CSS part. Notice how CSS can animate both DOM elements and SVG elements. And this will become a bonus for one of your labs today. Then we move on to the JavaScript. So in JavaScript, you can also animate using either vanilla, or you can use frameworks or libraries. This is the Greenstock library icon. You can play with the canvas element through JavaScript. JavaScript now has its own web animation API, but as I'll explain later on in the course, Greenstock is still superior to this. Then you got a whole island to itself on SVG. And we're going to touch on Webflow, Adobe Animate, and AR as well, and performance. Okay, so right now we're going to begin here. CSS transforms, that's where we are. So to do today, we're going to identify the syntax of the CSS transform property. We are going to apply a variety of the transform functions, as well as a brief introduction to the 3D, how to do 3D transformations as well using. So open up, if you haven't already done so, open up my slides. Again, you can do that either by going to the AWS link I provided in the announcements, or the pre-class to-dos, or you can download it on my GitHub so you can have it locally, because there's lots of things I want you to click on. All right, so this is a quote from Val Head. She says, she likes to think of transforms as the yoga of CSS, right? So yoga, you can squash, stretch, you can do all these different bendy kind of things. That's what you can think of transform as like. So you can normally take these normally flat rectangular objects in your HTML document, and you can also twist them around into different shapes. My personal mental model of transforms used to be yoga as well, but now, coming from a year later, I like to think of transforms as the pose to pose, because as you'll see in a second, when you transform something, it's very jerky. It goes from one place to another place, or another, form, very jerky. There's no smooth animation at all. But that's where transitions come in next week, where it makes it straight ahead. Okay. So transforms, they change the shape and the position of the affected content by modifying the coordinate space. The important thing to know is transforms do not disrupt the normal document flow. Okay, so when you transform something, the rest of the page is the same. So here is the syntax of transform. You basically have transform, colon, and then the name of the function that you're about to use. And there are 4 major ones. I've listed a link here under MDN docs. Let's take a look at that for a second. Here. So you could have, these are the major 4. You could have translate. Think of translate as moving x, y coordinates. You can have scale. Think of scale as your squash and stretch. Grow bigger, grow smaller. You can have rotate, so that turns things around. And you could have skew. I like to think of skew as the follow through or overlapping. Okay, so those are the 4 major ones that we'll be using for the 2D realm. For the 3D realm, you have a whole bunch of other ones that end with 3D or have the letter Z at the end of it. So you have translate 3D, you have scale 3D, you have rotate 3D. Or if you don't want to use a 3D at all, you could just use the X, Y, Z, right? Because you already know about rotate X and rotate Y. Actually, no, you don't. Never mind. So that's today. But you could also say rotate X, rotate Y, rotate Z, and the shortcut for that is rotate 3D. So this form of rotate X, rotate Y, rotate Z is equivalent to rotate 3D. You could say that as well. Now, you may have noticed in this documentation, there's something called matrix. We will not touch that. That is if you're mathematically inclined. I think it's more like you could, vectors. Like you can combine all of these things into one matrix. So this one matrix could represent all of this kind of thing. But just be aware of it. But I won't be explaining that. Let's see. Okay, so as I said before, these are the 4 major ones that you will need to know for 2D transforms. I placed icons here to kind of give you a visual indicator to remind you what they do. So again, scale, it can move, like squash and stretch. You can make it grow or shrink. Skew is like the follow through. That's why I put the parallelogram to make it look like it's follow through or whatnot, where you have inertia. Then you got translate, where you can move it sideways, up and down. And you have the rotate, which move it clockwise or counterclockwise. So these are the major 4 for transform. Okay, so again, because this is relatively new, when I first learned about this, I got confused with transform, translate, and all that stuff. Think of these 4: scale, skew, translate, rotate. They can only come underneath this transform. Okay. And keep in mind also, when you're animating, you're not just limited to these 4, but also the other animatable properties as well. Remember in week 1, I gave you this link here, which, oops, there we go, on MDN, other animatable CSS properties. You could use these other properties as well to animate. However, for performance reasons, try to use transform and opacity only, if you can. So yeah. The first one we're going to work on, and this is where you'll start to play and tinker around with the values, is this one. So if you're on this slide, I want you to click on this, or maybe right-click on the Edit Code pen, open it up in a new tab, and you're gonna work through this, and I'm going to guide you through this. Okay, so right now it's not interactive at all. Okay, if you hover over the buttons, nothing happens. Okay, so we're starting with scale. Scale is where you can resize elements, right? So you can make things grow, make things shrink. So by the way, when you're here and you've logged into CodePen, I want you to fork this so you have your own local copy. Okay, so if you're here, fork it if you want. You don't have to, but you can. For the labs or for the in-class exercises, you can fork it. Because when I ask you to submit your in-class exercises using your own CodePen, then it has to come up from your account, right? Because you can't save online. So for this first example here, there's 4 ways you can use scale. You can use scale like this, where you have the word scale followed by the number inside the brackets. Or you could have scale X or scale Y, or you could have this kind of scale where you have 2 values, which specifies the X and Y. We're going to start with this top left corner one for now. So you tell me does this scale 1.5? Does that make something scale in the x-axis, the y-axis, or both? What do you think? Yes, correct, both. Whereas the second example here, scale x, is only for the x-axis. Similarly, for the y, it's only for the y-axis. And then here for scale, again, you could specify either x or y. So let's try this. In the CSS part, you'll see where I have commented, try the following. And I'm going to have you to try this out. So go ahead and transform this top left corner one, which is the dot scale one. And all you have to do is type what I typed here. Okay, so let's try it out. So transform scale 1.5. Now, because, and notice I already put your trigger here, your pseudo class of hover. So if you hover over the button, there, it transformed. Now, you may be thinking, okay, cool, but it's not like the animated experience that I was expecting. That's where next week comes in for transition. But for now, for today's class, we're gonna put in transition just to see it work nicely and smoothly. So let's put in the, since these are all buttons, find the CSS for button, find the block for button, and somewhere in that, maybe put a new line for button, and put in this. Again, we're going to touch on transitions next week. Okay, but for now, just type in transition : 2s for 2 seconds. Now go ahead and hover. There, now is the animated experience that you're looking for. Do you see why earlier I said, for me, my mental model of transforms is pose to pose, because it's jerky. Whereas as soon as you add transition as well, it's straight ahead, smooth, interpolating between those two states. So try the next one. So go ahead for the top right corner, that's scale 2. Go ahead and type in that and check it out and see what that does. Now, before you actually hover, I want you to imagine what it's going to look like before you hover, so you have a good mental model of what it does. Okay, so you probably did this, transform scale x 1.5, okay? So before I even hover, I'm imagining that this should stretch sideways, right? Because x is horizontal. Here we go. Right. So try the third one. Try the next one, scale 3. Okay, so I put transform scale y 2.5. Before I hover it, I'll imagine, I think it should stretch vertically this time. Okay, it does, good. And then the final transform is where you can affect both the x and the y value in one statement. So here it should stretch both horizontally and vertically, although it should stretch vertically more so. Did everyone get that? Is everyone playing around, having fun? Good. This is today's class, tinkering around with values as we go through each of the properties. Okay. Good. So save that so you have it in your own collection. You need to refer to it later. Any questions before we move on? Okay, so the next property is skew. And again, we're going to do the same kind of thing. So skew tilts the element left or right. I like to think of this as the follow through or overlapping with inertia. So let's code along. So in this slide, do the same thing. Right click on the code pen here and get a new tab open. Okay. Now, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a challenge here. As we move on, it's going to get a little harder. So instead of hovering, what else could we do? We could have it respond to a click event question. So instead of hover, how would you respond to a click event in CSS? What's the magic pseudo class here? Yeah, so active. So let's say active. Let's make this all active. So let's just practice using the pseudo class active. And the reason I'm doing this is because through each property, through each of these examples, as we go through the next few examples, I'm going to teach you different ways to trigger an animation. So we know the hover. Okay, we're experts on hover. Now we'll be experts on active. Okay. So let's try to make this skew. So go ahead and do the same thing. So the first one for element 1, which is the top left corner, try typing it in. Transform skew 20 degrees. Okay, let's see what happens. Click, click, and it skews. Release the click, it goes back to normal. Does everyone get that? One mental trick I have when it comes to skew X for the next one is, because I know X means horizontal, my mental model is that these horizontal lines in this rectangle will stay the same. It will not move. It will still stay straight. So therefore, the vertical lines will angle. That's how I like to think of it. So try the next one. And I put in here, I put question marks here because I say in the comments in CodePen, try to make this lean to the right. And I say that because I want you to be aware what kind of value makes it go to the right. Is it positive or negative? So I want you to know that. Experiment. What's the answer? Positive or negative? To make it lean to the right. Or skew Y. Negative, yeah. Let's try the next one. Let's try the next one here. Skew Y 20. Now, I actually say in the comments here, what happened? Actually, we'll try this the regular one. Transform skew Y 20 degrees. Okay, we'll try that. Okay, good. Now I say in the comments here, what happens if you skew it by something larger, like 180 degrees? All right. So you can see here when I say 180 degrees, it does do a 180-degree turn. But notice that the final destination is exactly the same thing as the initial state. Therefore, if I had no transition, let me comment my transition statement out. I just commented my transition of 2 seconds gone. Now if I click on it, looks like nothing happened. It did transform. It's just that the final destination is the same thing as the initial destination. Right? So that's why I like having transitions. It makes you see what's happening under the hood. Yes, very good. Excellent question. So notice how for these skew, so let's go back to the first one. When I'm skewing, where is the center that it's skewing from? It's right here in the middle, right? It's not skewing from any other point. So by default, and we're going to get into this in a second. By default, it's right in the middle. Okay. But we can change that, and we'll get to that in a second. So try the final one here for skew. See what you can do with that one. So transform. Try all kinds of values just to experiment and understand mentally what's happening. This is pretty much today's class, is tinkering with values, all the different properties, just so you know. Cool. Everyone did all 4. Everyone's happy with playing tinkering with skew. We can move on. Any questions? Yeah. Another thing I like to think about the how it skews. Like because I know it's the point of origin is at the middle, then if I skew it, it's sort of like if I took my hand and virtually tugged at this corner, that's how it moves, because the point of origin is at the middle. Okay, next slide, next example. So save that, so you have it as a reference. The next one we're going to get into is translate. Translate basically moves elements sideways or up and down. This is your X or Y axis kind of movement. So last year when I taught this course, a student, when I asked them for week 1 to identify one website that gives animation, they gave this example here, treefrog.ca. So let me show you that website real quick. It's a real simple animation, but it covers our topic nicely. So here in this website, you can see there's a button here called Get a Quick Quote. And watch what happens if I hover. Watch what happens to the rocket. Yeah. I hover again, it goes up. Also notice how it moves up. We're going to get into this next week with the transition and the timings. Notice it's not a linear movement of this. Notice it starts off very slowly, and then it speeds up. Okay. Let's try to emulate this with what we know with translate. So here, again, right-click your code pen, get it on Open Tab, and you already know what it looks like, okay? Based on what you've already learned with skew and the other one, you know the syntax of translate. It's the same thing. So scroll down in the CSS portion and find this comment where I say fill in the line below. Right? That will animate the rocket ship. I've already put in the transition of 2 seconds there for you, so you just have to fill in what you think makes that rocket go up. So go ahead, try. If you need help, you can always go to MDN's Translate. Translate. Syntax, just to double check. There it is. So you could say translate TXTY, or you could say, actually, yeah, you could say that. Or you could say translate X, or you could say translate Y. Try it. Experiment. So try number 1. Make the rocket launch go straight up. If you're successful with that, try number 2. Make the rocket launch go on an angle. Number 3, make it a smooth animation. I already did that for you. I put transition there. I forgot to take it. All right, so anyone get it? Show of hands, who got it? Joel, tell me what you'd put. Yep. Yep. -5 inches, nice. Woohoo. Yep. And notice Joel used inches there. You can use any unit. You could say pixels, you could say whatever, right? Whatever standard unit of measurement. Okay, good. Anyone get number 2? Yeah, go Joel. Yep. Inches, -5 inches. All right, let's check it out. Woo. Cool. What's our next slide? So I don't think we did that one yet, did we? We didn't. Okay. Before we move on to our next slide, which is rotate, I just noticed something. I'd like this rocket to go on an angle, but go in the same, point in the same direction as it's going. So the answer to that, as you might guess, is rotate. Now we haven't gotten to that slide yet, But here's, you could guess. It's basically rotate and then put in degrees, like 60 degrees in brackets, negative 60 degrees, whatever the direction you want. So try putting in right after. Actually, I'm going to purposely make a mistake for a second. I'm going to try this. Do not do this. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say, okay, I want it to rotate. So I'm going to say transform, rotate 60 degrees. Let's see what happens. Notice what happened. Did it go up? No. But I do have transform translate, so it should have gone up, shouldn't it? Why doesn't it go up? What do you think? Yeah, you can only have one transform. This is like regular CSS overriding other CSS before it. So this is a trap that I fell into when I first learned transforms. I'm saying, okay, why isn't this working? Oh, shoot, yeah, it's just like regular. I'm overriding another CSS with another CSS. That's why it's not working. So the solution to that is to use multi-line. And so here, this is a future slide, but I'll tell you right now. You could do this. Without any commas, just put your other function values in there. Kind of thing. Cool. All right, next slide. Any questions so far before we... Okay, next slide is rotate. So rotate, again, yeah, you can have it rotate clockwise or counterclockwise from its current position. So go ahead and open up your own CodePen and try number 1, which is make the compass rotate 60 degrees clockwise. Number 2, make it a smooth animation. And here's where I don't give you any help at all, or any scaffolding whatsoever. You have to figure out what CSS block you need. Okay, so first thing, make it rotate clockwise 60 degrees. How are you going to do that? So I purposely made it a little bit harder by not giving you any scaffolding help. You just have to fill in the whole thing yourself. Yeah. I think yes. Yes, I think so. Should be. All right, so let's try triggering with a hover event for now. So I'm going to say compass pseudo class hover. So once it hovers, it should do the following. I want it to transform by rotating 60 degrees. What that does, it should not be smooth, it should be jerky. So let's do number 2, make it smooth. How do we do that? Answer, we put in a transition of 2 seconds or whatever. Now it's kind of rotating. That's not exactly center, is it? That's okay. Without in a second. Now, here's the other way you can trigger something. So you already know how that hover pseudo class can trigger something. The active pseudo class can trigger something. I want you to use JavaScript only now to activate something. So how are you going to do that? You can do it like this. So grab the button or the compass. So we'll say const compass. Now for Steve, now Steve and Mark, did Scott already teach you const and let? And you're using var right now for. Yeah. Okay, I'll just say const. So const compass document dot query selector want the div class with compass. So let's target that. Okay, so we want to listen for a click event. So, oh, what? Zooming in, yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. I'm writing the wrong section. Happens when you're up here. Okay. Compass. Listener, click. And after that, I want to do something. What is it that I want to do? I want to add my class. So I'll call this, I'm going to rename this dot compass to something more obvious, maybe like rotate. Okay. So I want to, how do I add a class in JavaScript? Remember? Anyone remember? Compass dot what? Yeah, class. Is that what you said? Class list? Yeah, class list dot add, and then rotate. So let's see if JavaScript works, right? So we're depending on JavaScript click event now instead of the pseudo classes to see if this works. So let's on that. Oh, but it doesn't go back. It did work, but it didn't go back. Let me try it again, just to show you, okay? Let me try that again. Okay, so it's reset, everything's reset. I'm gonna click it once, click, it rotates because it adds the class, but when I click it again, it's already added the class because that's all I've coded it to do. It's not gonna remove it. So what do you think I can do to make it go away for the second click? A couple of ways to do that. What do you think? Simplest way is this. Instead of .classlist.add, you can say classlist.toggle. Let's try this now. So if I click once, it should add the class. Good, it did. If I click again, it should remove the class. Now you know 3 ways of triggering an animation: hover, active for pseudo classes, both pseudo classes, and finally through JavaScript through the toggling, listening to a click event. Okay. You'll need that for future labs. You'll need to know how to trigger. Okay. Anything else I want to say on this one? Okay, so yeah, next slide. So just like Steven said about the point of origin, that's the purpose of the next slide here. Transform origin. So let's take a look at the documentation about what this is about, how to use it. Transform origin sets the center, I guess, or the origin for the element's transformation. So here, for example, if your transform origin is center, then this is how it rotates, right? There. Rotates right in the middle. But you can move that point. Imagine there's an invisible point there. You can move that to some other corner. So here, where it says top left, watch, that should move it to this corner right here. So let's see what happens when I, there, see? So transform origin top left, that point is now, it's still rotating, but it's rotating where, based on this point of origin, okay? You don't have to say keywords like top left. You can also give specific pixels or distances or even percentages. So let's try this, transform origin 50 pixels by 50 pixels. Let's try that. Where's that? It's right here. So that point of origin is now there. That's why it rotates the way it does. Bottom right, and then 60 pixels. Oh, so what's happening here? This is a 3D thing. So there's actually 3 values. There's bottom for the X, right for the Y, 60 for the Z. That's why it looks like that. Okay, so that's basically syntax. So let's try changing the point of origin for our previous example. So this, go to this slide, transform origin slide, which is a different code pen, even though it looks the same. Open up a new tab. Okay, so let's do the same thing again. We'll just use the hover, make it easy. Compass, hover, and transform rotate 60 degrees. Okay, it's hovering. Let's make it smooth by adding a transition of 2 seconds. Okay, Now, this is where we're going to play with the transform origin. Notice here I have commented out the transform origin 50. Try uncommenting that out and playing with the values. So uncomment that out. Play with the 50%, 50%. Try adding 0%, try adding 100% for both. Try different combinations of 0, 50, and 100 for both. Yeah, originally my transform origin was commented out. So take away the comments so that it's functioning. And then play with the values. Tinker with the values. Let's see what it does. Now, sometimes I like to help me understand what's happening, because sometimes even when I do this, I still don't understand why it's rotating that way. Another useful tip, besides adding a transition, is add a border. So here at the top of my compass block, I've commented out a border of 1 pixel. Take that out, so you actually have a border. And you can understand where the middle is or where the transform origin is. Because when you understand what you're dealing with, then you understand, oh, I get it. That's why it's rotating in that way. It's not center. Okay, so if I put in, for example, 0%, 50%, let's see where that is. So where's the point of origin there? So 0%, that's the x referring to the x value. So that means it's not even going this way. It's just sticking to this. That's where the x of 0 is. And then 50% down would be around here. That's why the point of origin is right there. Okay, let's try it 100%. 100%, 50%. What does that do? 100% means the x should be on this corner. 50% means the y should be in this corner. So it should rotate right there. And it does. Let's try the other one. So let's say 0%. So 50% of x should move it this way. 0% of y should stay where it is. It rotates there. And let's try 100%, which means it should be at the bottom. Good. I did. I did put the hover. Yeah. I'll give you a couple. I'll give you 1 more minute to play with that. Good to play. One other thing that I'm going to mention that may pertain to the bonus mark for today. Let's say you had notice what we're just dealing with DOM elements. You know, this is a PNG file that's been inserted. What if you were to use not a PNG file, but an SVG file inline? Okay, so for example, let's see here, SVG. Dev icon. I saw one here. Dev icons. Yeah. Here's a place that offers SVG stuff. Here. We copy that code here, SVG. Let's put that instead of in the HTML instead of this font awesome I class. Let's in the SVG that I just got from the internet. So this is an SVG image, and we're going to get into SVG in another class in the future. But the thing I want you to notice is, you examine the structure of SVG, is it very much looks like markup, HTML markup. We have, you have the angled brackets. You have nested things inside those angled brackets. And oftentimes SVGs will have different paths. So one path might indicate one square, another path might indicate another object on that image. And you can actually target a specific path, so a specific part of that image, and do some CSS transforms on it. So I'm just letting you know in case you want to experiment with that for the bonus mark for the lab. Okay, any other questions before we move on to the next slide? And finally, this is the slide that you already know, that you can use multiple values. So you can list different function values in the same line, okay? And that's the key, it has to be one line of transform. You can't have multiple transforms, otherwise you're overriding the previous ones. Big idea. Any questions so far? So here's an example for multiple values, which you already know. So this one here, if I click it, it does the transform and it does the scale. Again, I like to think of skew x. X means horizontal. That means these horizontal lines will not move when it skews in terms of angles. And then it scales. If it's a positive value, it grows. If it's a negative value, or if it's a, actually, if it's a decimal like 0.4, it should decrease somewhat. No. And if it's a negative value, it should decrease. That's right. What else? Here's another one. Transform. You have three. You have skew y, translate x, and translate y. So before I click it, let's imagine what this would look like. So skew y 10 degrees. That means it should kind of like, if I pull this corner up, it kind of should go up like that. Translate x. That means it should also move to the right. Translate y. It should also move down because they're both positive values. And there it is. Right. So it's good to try to play mental games before you click it, just to see if you're right, just to get a better mental model of what's happening. Okay. Any questions so far? All right. This is where you can go into Blackboard and do in-class exercise 3, or you can go to my code pen here and fork it so you have your own. This is new. I did not do this last year. Last year, I did something that you've already done in Scott McCrindle's class. I didn't know that at the time. So that's why I changed it up. But this should be more fun, I think. So you can use this, or you can use the Blackboard one. By the way, the Blackboard one has both PNG files and SVG files if you want to be creative with SVGs. But for this assignment, or in-class exercise, all I'm asking you to do, let's go over what I'm asking you to do, is there's 12 icons, pick only 4, delete the rest, okay? So fork it, pick 4 icons to animate. Using only CSS transforms and pseudo-class hover, animate your 4 icons. How you animate it is totally up to you. You have total freedom to be creative there. The only thing I ask is at least one icon uses scale. Another one, at least one uses skew. At least one uses translate. At least one uses rotate. Make it smooth. Bonus marks if you can also play through JavaScript the MP3 file, the corresponding MP3 file sound that I've also provided in the zip file in Blackboard. Okay? So submit that through Blackboard, your code pen link, or if you want to do local, that's fine too. After it's done, after the break, if you volunteer to show what you've done in class, you get a laptop sticker. All right. So that is. Oh, by the way, speaking of laptop stickers, I went to Amazon last week and I bought 3 of these. This one, I think this one, and one of these, I forget. So by next week, I should have it and a whole new selection for you to choose from. Right? Right, so I'm going to give you time in class to do your work. Where did my thing go? Where is my slide that we're on right now? So take 20 minutes to do in-class exercise 3. Take 10-minute break after that for a total of 30 minutes. I will set the timer. Good luck with that. Should be pretty simple, I think. 30 minutes. Don't have to. What do you mean? I know you said word delete the rest. Oh, I said, yeah. That's okay, yes. You can delete the rest of the HTML that you don't need. We're saying CSS, selecting people, not selecting by and you can select it however you want. Yeah, so the CSS is, you can make your own CSS, select it however you want. You can put IDs, images, yeah, you can put classes, whatever you want. All right. Yeah. To show you where I'm going with this. Actually, find it here. Yeah. So this past Christmas for the library website, I actually put in the footer this. Is there volume? I'm hovering there. So now I'm gonna hover over the snowflake. Now some of these animations you cannot do yet because some of these animations I use the keyframe animations technique, which you have yet to learn. Some of these are just basic though. I like that. That was my favorite one. I was trying to do a 3D transform there. Yeah. Be creative, whatever you want to do. Did it work? Did it work? Now, how do you make it smooth? Remember? Because right now it's jerky, right? How do you make it smooth? Remember? At the transition of 2 seconds or something. Whatever you want. Yeah, you can just submit your code pen, yeah.
Are you referencing the sounds from somewhere else?
If you're going to do it through CodePen, then you'd have to upload the sounds to your own AWS, for example,
Oh, I see.
and then just reference it from there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think it's recorded.
Yeah.
Am I recording to YouTube, right? Not like last time. Yeah, I think I got that. So I got that. As long as I got that, it should be okay. Yeah. So after this, there's a quiz and there's a lab as well.
Okay.
Quiz is unlimited, so you can get through that. Lab is a little bit harder than what we're doing now.
Okay.
It's all recorded, so But it's the same. The lab is basically the same thing as what you're doing now, except a little bit harder.
Okay.
Yeah.
you did message me that you were gonna stay up and do stuff after.
Bro, I was laying in bed during the
So good. And then apparently she was like wasted one night. That's when she messaged me like, "What are you doing, Snow?" You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, like the fetching of fruit, yeah, and like the rice and everything.
Yeah, the basic. I never had those. Oh, they were dirty. They're so good.
So bad for you.
I know, but they were so good. The best thing ever. Bacon tart now. Every time I went to Mexico, it was like, just side things, dinner. Always pass it. Parties. Nothing. Like hot dogs were like being drunk. But it's always good. It's always good. And Oreos.
Yeah, I've never had a boil. Yeah, there's no water.
I'm nasty. You know, that's surprisingly good. So really unexpected, like,
Yeah.
All right, welcome back. One thing I forgot to mention about the other thing you should try to animate. So the two best performant properties are transform and this one, opacity. So this one I forgot to demonstrate, but it's pretty simple. Opacity of 0 means it's invisible. Opacity of 1 means it's full on. So you could also animate that as well. Here's a little commercial break. So a couple of things that I found this past week. As of Firefox Nightly, they're currently working on animating CSS grids. So this is what you can now do in Firefox Nightly edition, where you can actually animate the CSS grid. So that's going to be coming down the pipeline, which is kind of cool. There's this one extension in VS Code that you might give it a try. It's called Better Comments. And with that, you can have your regular comments, but it actually colorizes it depending on the first character that you type. So if you type an exclamation mark, it turns red. If you type a question mark, it turns blue. If you say to do, it gives you orange. So here's a demonstration. I already installed the extension. And so here's my, here's my comment. So if I say exclamation mark, right? If I say question mark, it's lighter blue than usual. If I say to do, turn it orange. So it's kind of neat. Yep. Yeah, good question. It is. Remember last semester you told me not to idolize one guy. Remember last semester you told me not to idolize that one guy, that one coder. West Boss. He made this, Cobalt 2. So that's the answer. I use Cobalt 2 theme. I don't, no, you don't remember that one? Okay. And then I saw this in Twitter, which I thought was kind of neat. It's who here has heard of Bob Ross? Excellent. I grew up kind of watching him, kind of. So Bob Ross doing the floss like a boss. It's on CodePen, and here it is. And the cool thing is, because it's CodePen, you can see how they did it. And all they didn't use SVG. They just used DOM elements right here, right? So there's no SVG. And then in the CSS, they just have different variables for the different things. They're using transform, see, transform, translate X, huh? Right? Transform, translate X. Look, they're translate Y, skew. So check that out. Cool. All right, let's do a little survey. So if everyone can go to this link here, pollev.com/avcoder470. This will be a nice little review. So I'm going to hover over each of these, and you tell me A, B, C, or D, which one applies. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, there's more than one transform function happening here, and you would be right. But out of these 4 A, B, C, and D's, which one is correct? So vote now. Oh, it's only one person that voted. 2. Oh, sorry. All right, and the answer looks like is based on all 3 of you. Nice, yeah, I recognize that sound. Okay, so you're all voting for C, and that would be the correct answer, -3. So the important part is -3 in this context means counterclockwise. Okay, next slide. Let me clear the results here for a second. Archive that. Yeah. Okay, so the next slide is this. It looks the same, but the answers are different. So now what's the other property that I'm using? Okay, let's see what you get. Ooh. It's almost a tie. Let's just double check the answer. I'm pretty sure it's B. Let me just double check here. There it is. So I'm using scale. Oh, scale 1.2. So the answer is C. I was wrong. There you go. The answer is C. Very good. I guess you could just look at the CodePen and find out. So try not to look at the CodePen. Okay, here's the next slide. Let me clear the results here. This one here, I'm going to click it, and it does this. So what do you think that does? What was that? There's more than one thing happening here. You're right. Everyone's voting to C. Okay, let's check out the answer. What is it? It is translate 200 pics and -70. 200 pics and -7, which is the answer of B. Is that what you voted? No, not at all. Okay, and then the final one is this one here. So let me again. So what do you think out of these 4 answers? What do you think is happening as well? I showed you the answer already. It's this one. Q -40. Now you chose A. Yes, good. Very good. So now that you're all prepped and ready to go, we can play Kahoot. All right, so let's go into here, play. And this is for laptop stickers. Classic, start. Okay, there you go. So go to kahoot.it. Type in the PIN number. Type in your username. There's 8 questions, I believe. What was that? I didn't hear you, sorry. So in your phone or on your laptop, go to kahoot.it, type in this PIN number, type in your code name, and we're ready to go. Thanks, Andy. Thanks for joining, Andy. Thanks for joining, Matt. Welcome, Yeedle. Who's Yeedle? Okay, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 16. I'm waiting for 7 more. Unless you don't want to play.
Don't start yet.
Don't start yet, okay. Okay, a few more seconds, or when Brando gets back to his seat, we'll start. Yes, if you win, you can postpone your sticker grabbing till next week, till when I get more. Yes, I realized that, Mike. Yes, I realized that. That's why I bought it. Okay, 10, 9, 8. Here we go. 8 questions. Yes, we're ready. Name this transform. They're all this. Name this transform. Again, you get more points the faster you answer. So this is the natural position, and this is the shifted position. Okay. So all of them are like that. You're going to see a dotted square, which represents the natural position. You're going to see a green square, which represents the shifted position. Nice. Ooh, ugly score. There we go. Name this transform. There you go. Okay. Let's see. B. Nice. Nice work, B. Name this transform. Good. Nice. Yes, I tricked you. Yes. That's why I do these things, to trick you. Nice. Yep. Positive versus negative values, right? Okay, tell you what. Okay, I'll save the announcement until later. I don't believe in participation trophies.
I don't usually.
Okay, here's my announcement. Here's my announcement. Just like the Olympics, gold, silver, and bronze. You're right. If you're in 7th place, you definitely lost. I will award the first place, the second place, and the third place. The first place gets 3 stickers. The second place gets 2 stickers. Third place gets 1 sticker. How's that? Here we go. So we got Vivian, we got Yidel, we got Andy. Here we go. Yeah, all of the above. Yep. All right. Oh, it's a close one between Vivian and Brando. Here we go. Final question. Here we go. This is an easy one. Or is it? Ooh, let's see who the winners are. Oh, Brando, you get 3 stickers. Vivian, right? You got 2, and Andy gets 1. So remind me next week when I get my whole batch of stickers. You can come on claim them. Yeah, do you want me to? You want me to screenshot this? Oh, okay. All right, cool. All right, so that was in the realm of 2D. We're gonna move on to 3D right now. So here's a quote from Val. She says, she likes to think of CSS in the 3D realm sort of like postcards in space. However, to start off that process on how to make things look 3D using transforms, you have to first add perspective, which is a property, okay? So here are all the properties that you need to know for the 3D realm. Notice that you know pretty much all of these 3 already. You just have to add the 3D after the end of it, or you don't even have to use 3D. You could say translate X, translate Y, translate Z if you want. Also, you need to, the very first thing to make it look 3D is you have to add something called perspective. Perspective origin, we'll get into that in a second. And this, you probably never have to use this, but I'll show you it anyway. Okay, so you know most of these already. Let's start with this. So if you are on my code pen, go ahead and right-click the code pen and start that off. So perspective length can be in pixels or EMs, or it basically represents the approximate distance of how far away you are from that element. Now, you can add the perspective property in 2 places, either in the transform statement or in its parent element. I like placing it on the parent element because that way all the children or descendants will also have the same CSS perspective. Okay, so let's open this up. I put here a bunch of questions in the CSS, a bunch of things to do and a bunch of things to try and ask. So let's try number 1. So number 1 is add transform rotate Y 160 degrees to the image. So as you can see by the HTML, I only have basically the image tag. So that's what we're gonna target the wrapper. Okay, let's target the wrapper. I think. Oh, no. Sorry, we're gonna target the. What did I just say here? Yeah, we're gonna target the image. Yeah. So let's go focus on the image block, and we're gonna add transform rotate 160 degrees. So I'm gonna copy that. Paste. Okay. What just happened? It did rotate. Now, because there's no smoothing, there's no transition, that's what it automatically shows. So maybe what we should do is upon hover, it should rotate. So instead of putting the transform here, under the image. Let's take that out and put it on the hover. So now if I hover over the image, boom, it rotates. However, again, it's like pose to pose. There's no straight ahead. Therefore, to make it smooth, I have to use transition, right? So in the image, I'll say transition. I'll just do 2 seconds again. And we'll get into transitions next week. So now that I add a transition, rotates on the y-axis. However, notice it doesn't look very 3D yet, right? So let's see number 2. Number 2 says add perspective to the parent element. What is the parent element in this case? So if this is the image, the parent is the wrapper div tag. So let's target the wrapper, which is right here. Let's add perspective. And a good starting off point is 1,000 pixels. Add perspective, 1,000 pixels. Now hover over your thing, see what it looks like. Now you see the 3D, right? Now it's coming at you, kind of. That edge is like coming toward you, it seems. Okay. All of you should be, is everyone getting this? Yes? You're getting this over there? Yes? All right. All right. Let's try this. Let's change, no, let's do number 3. Let's change rotate Y to rotate X. So instead of rotate Y, let's say rotate X. Let's see what that does. Oh. Right. Again, let me just, for learning's sake, let me comment out this line of perspective. So this perspective is not there. There, it's not there. Now if I hover over it, see, it doesn't seem 3D anymore because you don't have perspective. That's the first line, first rule, add perspective property on the parent element. Okay, great. Let's try number, what am I here? Make it smooth. Oh, here we go. 3B. Oh, we did that too. Try adding rotate. I think I did that too. Okay, now it's just time to play with the values. So either with rotate X or rotate Y, I want you to play with the values. Decrease the value, increase the value. See what happens. Tinker. Okay. Oh, that's what I meant by 4. Okay. Right. Okay. So let's go back to something like rotate Y 160 degrees. Let's go back to something like that. Okay. This time, I want you to play and tinker with this perspective property. So instead of 1,000 pixels, I want you to play with that. Decrease it, increase it to your liking. See what happens. So here, for example, I put 100 pixels for perspective. And then when I hover over it, it looks like that. Whoa. I put 3,000 pixels. Doesn't really look like. 1,000 pixels is nice. Okay, let's go back to perspective 1,000 pixels for a second. We've tried rotate X, we've tried rotate Y. I want you to try rotate Z. What does that do? What does that look like to you? What other transform property does that look like to you? Yeah, just a simple rotate. And that's a point of observation, is that sometimes you can achieve the same effect by using another cheaper effect. When I say cheaper, I mean in terms of performance. Because we're dealing with 3D, it uses more computing power. So keep that in mind. What else did I say here? Okay, yeah. So this is what I have a challenge here. Try to recreate that Star Wars scrolling text effect. Like try to, you know what I mean? Like, what if I go to YouTube for a second? Type in Star Wars intro. Yeah, you know that one, right? No, we don't want that. Yeah. Right, so when it reaches this point, try to make that kind of look with what you have right now, where it's kind of angled like that. You don't have to make it move, just make it angled like that. So back here, make it angled like that. That's your challenge for the next 5 minutes. Now that you know the different properties, try it. Try to make it that look. Did you get it already? Yeah, awesome. So here on my screen, I think I achieved the look. If you want to see the answer, how I did it, it's right on the screen. So this time I used originally I had 1000 px, right? But it made it look like that. But I wanted more of that closer look. So I know that the lower the value, the closer it appears to me, kind of thing. So I made 300 pixels. And I used the rotate X of 60 degrees around there. And you should have that look. Cool. All right. So this CSS perspective value does not affect the element itself, but it affects the transforms of its descendant elements in 3D transforms, allowing them all to have a consistent depth perspective. Here's another example on my screen of perspective. Right now you're seeing an animation between 1000 pixels for perspective and 100 pixels perspective. Right now it's at 1000, and then in a few seconds it's going to hit 100 there, 100. Okay, so the lesson to be learned here is that lower values bring you closer to the object. So it's basically distorted more, makes it look like it's right there in front of your face. Whereas higher values show a more flatter effect. Okay, let's try the next one here. Actually, before I move on, let me just double check something. Yeah, okay. Next slide, perspective origin. So just like you had transform origin, now also have perspective origin, okay? So here, the perspective origin establishes the vanishing point, which by default is the center, which is 50%, 50%. Let me just see here. Let's try changing and tinkering with the values. So in this particular slide that I have called perspective origin, I want you to right-click the code pen, and in the CSS, scroll down until you see my comments where I say try changing the perspective origin. And you see the perspective origin property and values right there. I want you to tinker with the values right there. So try different combinations like I suggest in my comments and see what happens. So if I change the perspective origin to 50%, 100%, this is what it looks like. It looks like we're flying underneath the objects right now. Okay, cool. So that means this place value of 100%, that represents the y value, which is the properties we've played with. All right, let's try a different value. Let's try 50%, 100, 0%. See what that does. Looks like we're flying above the objects. 0% represents 0 at the top, y-axis. So it looks like we're flying at the top. Okay, let's try 0%, 50%. So this is affecting the x. This looks like we're shifted to the left. Right, we're heading toward to the left. Okay. Let's try 100%, 50%. The opposite effect. On the right, we're going to the right. Let's try something else. Let's try like 5%, 100%. 5% and 100%. Let's see what combination. So it kind of looks like we're underneath it and it's shifted. So that's perspective origin. I'm going to demonstrate perspective and perspective origin using Webflow. So Webflow is something you're going to touch upon later in the course. So basically what it is it's an app, web app, just like apps that you've seen on the line. So I'm going to try to attempt to do the Star Wars thing here. But the cool thing about using this tool is on the right-hand side, you're going to see a bunch of GUI tools where you can dynamically change the values and immediately see the change. So you don't have to wait for the animation to show. And so let's try this out. Let's try what's Star Wars intro text. Get it from here. Oh. Which one should I use? The original. This one. That. And let's go into here. Let's add a container. All right, let's add a paragraph. There's my lorem ipsum. Let's highlight all of that. Paste in my stuff. Let's bump up the let's bump up the line spacing. How come it looks like this? Try deleting. And if you want, you can create your own Webflow account. We're not going to use it anytime soon yet, though. Okay, I think that's good enough. Maybe I can make it larger. Let's see here. 60. Let's change the font color to match kind of the Star Wars effect that we're going for. We want the background color to be transparent. Let's set the body. If I click the body, I should now see the body properties. And let's make that black, solid. Okay. And then now we can play. So now that I got the text, first level of making something look 3D is perspective. So the parent element, I believe, is the body. Or is it the container? No, I forget now. Shoot. Let me put it on Oh no. Okay, let me put on the container. Let's see. No, we'll put on the body. We'll see. Body. Where is the perspective? It should be under transitions, transforms. Where'd it go? There, perspective. Set it to 1,000 pixels. And so that's on the parent. On the child, which is this paragraph, let's go into transforms and add a rotate of, yeah. There you go. So that's that. If I add another transform of moving something, it looks like it's going up if I dynamically move it up, right? So that's the kind of thing. That's why I like using tools like Webflow, is that you can visually see, immediately see what's happening when you're adjusting the values. So anyways, just want to show you that.
And then you get one.
This will automatically, if I say publish right now, it'll automatically make this website. Now, right now, it's not going to do anything because I didn't set any hover animation or anything like that, but you could. Yeah, so Webflow is a really neat tool to design websites without coding. Anyways, so just another thing that you basically already know, and I already mentioned, is that, so Translate 3D is a shortcut. It's a shortcut to these three here. Translate X, translate Y, translate Z. Is there anything here that I wanted to mention? I don't think so. Comments. What did I say here? Change below value to 15 pixels. Okay, so this value here, translate Z. Let's try increasing this and see what happens. So right now it's at 15 pixels. If I say 25, it looked like it's getting closer. Closer. So each time 45, 55. So why is that? Because the Z represents, in terms of axis, you already know X is horizontal, Y is vertical. Z, think of Z as the axis is coming toward you, out of the screen. Think of a pole that sticks out of your screen. That's the Z axis. That's why it looks, every time I increase the value, it goes either closer or further away from me, right? So if I say negative 65, to be far. Now watch what happens if I keep on going. What happens if I just keep on going? So 75, 85. I'm like, I'm through the object now, right? Okay, what else did I say? Comment line above and add line below. Oh, okay, so all I'm saying here is that, let me comment this out and then uncomment this one. So again, to summarize, this is just a shortcut for translate X, translate Y, translate Z. So I could also put 75 here and have the same kind of effect. Same thing here, scale 3D is a short form for scale X, scale Y, scale Z. I won't ask you to tinker with these. I think you know by now what to expect. What did I say here? Try changing the values below. So instead of 1 for the X, let me try saying 0.2. That's the X, right? That's why it squashes. Let's go back to 1. Let's try the Y. Let's say 0.2. And try the Z. And finally, what else do I have here? Rotate. Now, this is one of the famous examples when Rotate 3D first came out. This was used as a demonstration on what you could do with it. So here, if I click on this button called Toggle Shape, you can see the Rotate 3D in its full effect. Also, they even provided an option here for back faces visible. If I check that out, it's no longer transparent or translucent. That's kind of neat. The documentation on 3D of Rotate is basically here. You have to have 4 parameters. And the 4th parameter is your degree of rotation. So that's kind of what to expect here. They also have another example down here, I think. So anyways, usually at this point, you don't I've never really seen examples where you actually would do this by hand. It's now you're dealing with a 3D world. You're usually using other software to deal with this because it's getting hard mathematically. And the final thing you need to know, which I've never seen any use case of why you would need to use this, but transform by default is this, preserve 3D. That's what makes it look 3D. Okay, but you could toggle this to be transform style of flat. So this is right now, this is what it looks like with transform style of preserve 3D. Watch what happens if I press the button so it changes that property to flat. There. So all those 3D now appear in the 2D plane of the parent element. That's basically what happens. And the final thing I want to mention is vendor prefixes. I'm assuming from other classes you know how and why to use vendor prefixes if you need them. I've listed a couple of links here. This one's called Auto Prefixer on GitHub. So the way that works is, let's say this is your CSS, right? It's using the newer display grid, CSS grid. And this on the right-hand side is the, all the use cases that will make it work on all browsers. But if you check out Can I Use, I'm pretty sure that grid is well supported, except for IE11, which no one cares about anymore. So, well, not sure. Work for the government. Okay, so, and there's some other links too here. Like this one here is kind of neat. Let me open that one. Oh, not that one. This one here. So you could toggle with the sliders what you want, and that way you can visually see immediately what kind of changes you're doing. And if you like what you've done here and you're satisfied with it, on the right-hand side, you can just download this, all the CSS. So you don't have to, you don't have to try to guess the numbers. You could just do it here. So that's a cool tool. I've listed other links here as well. What is this one? CSS3, please. What is that? Same kind of thing, I think. And what is this one? IE transforms translator. Turn your CSS3 transform syntax into something IE can understand. Okay, cool. Very nice. So bottom line, when using CSS transforms with browser prefixes, always finish off the unprefixed version with the unprefixed version, which is the last one in that list, so that when the browser drops support for the prefix, the accepted standard does it gets caught. Okay, so that's why you see it in these examples. Right, you have all these dash ones, dash, 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 but the real one is at the bottom. That's the last one in the list, right? Last one in the list. So it'll be picked up. Okay, I think, and I lost my slides already. I think that's pretty much all I had. In summary, you now have experience with visually manipulating in 2D the following transforms, which is rotate, scale, skew, and translate. You also have some knowledge on 3D transforms using the same kind of properties. A little bit of vendor prefix knowledge, as well as basic triggers like pseudo classes or JavaScript to run the transform animation. So that is pretty much it. This is where you can go into Blackboard, do quiz 3, which is unlimited. Again, when you submit quiz 3, I will not give you the right answer. It just tells you what's wrong. So you have unlimited choice, unlimited attempts to try to fix that. As well, do lab 3. Let me go through lab 3 because it's basically the same thing as what you just did with in-class exercise 3, but it's a little bit harder, a little bit more challenging. So let's go into that. I'll explain that right now. So lab 3. You're using the same Christmas icons. However, you are going to pick 4 more different icons than the ones you chose before, and you're going to animate them now with the following criteria. At least one icon has multiple values and uses the pseudoclass hover. At least one icon animates upon using the pseudoclass active. At least one icon animates using JavaScript to toggle a class, and that class itself is responsible for transforming the element. At least one icon animates in 3D. Make all animations smooth. Here's your bonus mark. Add a 5th icon using the SVG version of the candle, and try to figure out a way to just make the flame part flicker out. Okay. Now that's cool because most of the animations you see, all the examples, not all the examples, but most of the examples that you sent me in week 1 of websites that have animation, they all use SVG. points. So try to attempt that bonus if you can, if you want. Okay. Now this is, again, please don't submit your code pen for this one. Try to submit a local zip file, because this is the one that's worth more points. Okay. Any questions or comments before you have the rest of class to work on this? Cool. All right. Get to it. Again, if you have other work from other classes, you're free to work on them or ask me for help. I shall stop the